frame a recommendation for the LGBTQ open door. And I know a number of you went to that walk as well. So I think we got the minutes a couple weeks ago.
No.
No, we didn't. Okay, then let's not.
I have not.
We're gonna forward them to Sean.
Yeah, then didn't I was having what happened?
Uh-oh.
It was a Google thing and then
Yeah, I think I asked you to, oh no, that was the other,
It was a Google Doc. I mean, should have been able.
yeah.
the last,
I don't
I
know.
checked
Have to look
three,
at-
I checked 3 times on different days and different times of the day, and the last I have is from May. So I'm not sure.
Okay.
So we'll do that at the next meeting.
I'll send both tomorrow.
Thank you.
I understand the Ferry House dedication was very nice,
So nice.
Yeah, it's great.
It was beautiful.
and everybody thinks that's such a nice spot.
Perfect.
Good.
The framing against the brick and the evening
Mhm.
light.
I can report out that the Friends of the South End they're thrilled,
Good.
really thrilled.
So nice. Okay, great.
Nice when it all works out.
Yeah, I guess it's also a good lesson for us because remember, we weren't happy with it at first and we did make recommendations and I took the recommendations and then it's long history to get there, but I think it landed in the right place.
Absolutely.
Next City Hall exhibit.
Well, we have one. You can laugh, but it was kind of like the skin of our teeth. But it's gonna be all photography. We really had invited people who were painters, but that didn't work out. There are 4 photographers. We're moving it forward, like back. We're moving it ahead to September 22nd. Is the day that people deliver and we're going to hang. It's just that last week in August had a lot of stuff going on and it's just fun.
Yeah.
So we'll take down the current show. There'll be a period of pause and then we'll start the new one, which is Light Falls, a focus on light, shadow, and the dimming of the year. But it's interesting because the photographers all kind of like they all sort of work in that place among other places. But it's an invitational and we all have a lot of thoughts about the limits of that approach.
Sure.
And, I mean, I think we really want to see a real structure in place for 2027.
We've had ongoing discussions about, because, when we sit down weeks in advance, say, okay, who do we know, And I said, and then we're inviting people to respond within a limited time, to show up within a month or two, and artists plan like a year in advance their big shows, so we're just looking for other ways to. We've had some discussions. Different
Well,
ideas on how to formulate
It
that.
might be thinking ahead now to that happening in September, that could be a good time to then also pitch the invite, to get ready for that because there'll be publicity. There was great publicity around the first one, and that'll be a good time to pitch an open call, let people know that, you're ready for that.
And it would really be nice to have a big discussion about what the priorities are for that space and I don't know, just get more feedback from the group and write up some kind of something that enables it to go forward.
We could plan that for our August meeting so that we carve out some time.
Yeah, that would.
Kate,
What do we anticipate, kind of opening day?
Well,
Maybe.
I think that when is the city
council
council
meets about-
after that?
the last week of the month?
It is the last week of September.
So it could be a week.
28th.
Yeah, so
So
that
that could
could
be
be,
the 28th, the official.
We do it before the council meeting?
I think that worked really well.
Yeah, it worked
It
out.
was wonderful.
And do you want to tell us who the photographer?
Okay, the artists are Audrey Level, Say Choi, Michael Rodriguez Torrent, and Ron St. Jean.
Nice.
I like that it's photography. I think that will communicate to people that we're interested in a whole range of media. So, your first show is painting, the next one's photography. And there's such a great following of photography
Yeah.
on Seacoast.
Right.
We
I do want to say that Mandela Pruitt has been a really active member of the working group. She's knows a lot of people in the community, was very helpful in hanging.
And I know you're getting more hanging things or asked for more, right? Or
I've asked. I'm gonna ask a little more strenuous. We, I'll just say, we continue to be shorthanded, city staff, to the point where I was advised, we were advised the other day that we're actually having to start a ticketing system for facilities and custodial, because everyone just does their thing. Hey, Joe, hey, Mary. And that's a problem when you're short-staffed. So we're starting a ticketing system so that we can be efficient, so we can see how long requests are there, very much like an IT ticketing system.
Yeah.
Which we use. It's a struggle.
we've used probably for 15 years, the ticketing systems for all support in our company. And it cuts through all kinds of problems,
Yeah.
and you got the record there.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, and you can prioritize, you can see trends.
Exactly.
So,
That's cool.
good.
So maybe we could put a ticket in for some
Singers and
for some support on when the
for
day,
support with hanging.
yeah. So the day that you're gonna hang, I mean, we have to do that in advance, obviously, but we could see,
It's the 22nd, that's a lot, it's 2 months off.
yeah. So that would be great, just to be able to get an hour or two of support
Yeah.
from someone.
How do we do that? Through Sean? Okay.
Yes,
You're
Doug.
so handy. You said someone was very helpful on the subcommittee. Mara.
Oh, Mandela
Mandela.
Pruitt.
Remember we did that little thank you for the people after the RFP work? For what ended up being Spiraling Serenity?
Yeah,
I think that was a nice touch. Remember?
Is she's an ongoing part of the committee, right?
Yes, she's
Yeah,
not part of Park.
Right,
but-
maybe we could,
Oh.
if and when she rolls off the committee.
Yep.
would be
yeah,
good.
good idea, good
Yeah.
training.
It's a great idea.
I love
I'll
the
have to remember.
title.
I do too.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
And
No.
if you haven't gone in there, I hadn't noticed
Heather.
before, maybe because there were so many crowds. Each artist has a little card in there with a QR code on it. And so they're nice little advertising.
But we really do need the hangers and the hooks, because with photographs, they.
Yeah, we'll get in trouble.
So let me ask, if anybody knows what those are called, I'm happy to go online and get them.
Who originally
Emma.
purchased the system?
I assume facilities. I assume,
Um,
but I'm not,
actually, that's right, because we should just use our COP.
I don't know exactly what they are, and I wanna get.
Because I mean, we can't just go on Amazon and buy more, because we'd have to know that it
Exactly.
fit that same system.
Yeah,
Okay, I will,
Yeah. The library uses the same system.
same
Right.
system.
It might just be easier just to call the library and ask
Yeah,
them. That might be the,
Like how the wires slide back and forth in the bracket up above, like there
Is
might
that
be
something
different
one of
models.
us should do and
I-
give the
I-
information to you, or you wanna
well, I'll,
call them?
yes.
Thank you, Sean.
the next thing is, I did go to the trustee of trusts meeting because so much of their meeting is really about us. It seemed like a good thing to go once in a while. They did approve our first payment, well, it's not our first payment, but the NEVI payment, which is the $30,000 for Anthony, which was great, and it got sent out the next day. They approved the cost for the codfish which came out. And then they had a discussion about the maintenance. I think I mentioned this before, that they want to keep accounting separate of monies that we don't use on a percent art, but we've set aside for maintenance. So they formally says $10,000 that we set aside for spiraling Serenity. And we'll do the same as we set aside some for the garage. They are also, which I didn't realize, they separately account for our CIP funds. So, and then because they've been investing some of this, we do earn a small amount of interest. So we had earned like $170 of interest on the 10,000. So,
Pay for
The-
lips.
by state regulation, sources of, the trustees of trusts have to keep private sources different from what had been like city sources. So there's a lot of accounting that goes into this. And so I do think it's helpful to just keep checking in with them once in a while, because, you know, obviously they don't follow our meetings. So this comes to them in memo form and it's confusing.
Right, and what I've made sure I understand is what is their deadline to get on their agenda, to get it addressed, and then it's really my role to get approval from the city manager, to cite the city council's vote, basically all the backup that they need, so that it goes into trustees and it
Comes
out.
out.
And it doesn't get sent out
Yeah,
to come back,
Yeah.
because that's a month, they only meet monthly,
right.
so.
And they emphasized related to that, and Kate, that obviously you're the best one to monitor this. They actually want the wording that, not just that the contract was approved, but the payment related to the contract was approved. That's what held up Debbie. But the language wasn't as explicit. So we have to think about that in motions and.
I had a long discussion with the legal department about this, and so we are now going to take a different approach in how we write things, is my understanding.
Good.
In advance, so we don't end up in the same position, because the last thing that we want is the council, is the council voting to approve a piece of art. We issue an RFP, we have an artist, we're in the process, and then we have to make a payment. And suddenly we don't want to be in a situation that maybe we have a different council who doesn't
Right.
want the public art piece and votes no to make the payment.
Right.
We can't be in that position that we're having two separate votes over a long period of time.
Yeah.
So I asked them to fix that for us.
Right, like if the schedule of payments in the contract gets approved with the city manager's authority to act upon the schedule, right?
Right.
Then it's not four different votes, it's one vote to vote the schedule.
But still, they
Well-
seem to need some authority to then release that payment. That's what hung us up.
We're trying to fix it. So the first vote of the council to approve the project approves the project and disbursements.
That's
So that
great.
we don't have, it
Excellent.
shouldn't have to come to the council again,
Right.
you know, because the council's already approved it.
Right. That's great. So we'll have more practice with this coming up. But now a sad thing, Heather has to leave us because she's moving.
I'm really sad to leave the committee. I really enjoyed it. Hope I could at least be helpful in my short tenure. Thank you for being so welcoming, everyone.
Where do you go?
I'm moving to Mount Desert Island in Maine.
Oh,
Southwest
wow.
River.
Wow.
Yeah. I've been looking for a house there for years. I didn't actually think I would get one at some various points or find one, so.
That's one of the prettiest places in the world.
Excited.
Congratulations.
Yes, I mean, you can't be a real member because you're not living in Portsmouth, but you can always keep track of this.
Yeah, I'd love to. Maybe I can start a public art review committee up there. And I volunteer, I mean, I'm gonna stay on working group at least through that hanging up thing, if they want me to come, I don't know that they will, but happy to do that.
Absolutely. So that creates a vacancy, and we have a vacancy. So Ernie and I have been chatting up some different people, but welcome to any of you to do that too. The key thing is it's somebody who understands that the committee, we want them to pitch in and take on some responsibilities like all of you have. But we could meet with them, the mayor would meet with them. But I think it would be, as we go through this agenda, you'll see we have a lot of stuff coming up. So to be able to add a couple more people would be great. And just under city clerk online is where you find the application for boards and commissions.
Let me remind everybody that what some of the qualifications that we had were things like having an architect or an
Architect.
engineer or a landscape architect on the committee. So it might not be a person who's just an art person. If you think of somebody that fits that description, I think that's always helpful.
That's especially important for the work we do. I heard from Corin today that work on the J. Smith Park begins this week.
Oh, yay.
Which is good. And I believe, did you learn more? The bust was completed, right? The J. Smith.
Yes, we received an invoice. So that's for park to pay for, right?
No, that's for that special,
The spec, right?
special
It's-
J.
Because
Smith
it's not DPW, it's money that's been set aside.
set aside.
It's separate,
Yeah.
yes.
So I think that's great. I think it's really nice that we've done these little opening ceremonies, so we'll look forward to that one as well. Contract for the decorative bench has been signed, and they're estimate 18 weeks from the beginning of August. So that would put it, in November. And Sean and I were just been going back and forth today we're scheduling a time with DPW to discuss that installation and the installation of Nebby, even though Nebby is probably down the
This
line this spring.
Specifically, the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services permit required to apply.
Which can take a long.
So November.
Yeah,
That's for the bench.
that's for the bench.
So the bench, but what we DPW is advising is that we do one permit for both bench and Nebby because it's the same area.
Okay.
So rather than double the work,
Exactly.
do it at once, 2 locations, but we need all the excavation detail so that they can make their determination.
And we're gonna need, DPW or whatever, we'll pay for it, but we'll need to contract for some of that. We've asked Anthony to come to this meeting as well, so that I think he's already gotten estimates from Ross Engineering, but we'll see how that goes. So if one firm is dealing with both, and the permit, this should go more smoothly than otherwise.
Right.
And is the bench anchored somehow
It'll
or?
be on a concrete slab. It would
Okay,
have to be on something like.
right,
a
right,
concrete
but it's not gonna be anchored, like, somebody can't like lift it and take it.
Well, that's.
I know
why-
it's really heavy, but
That's a good point. I think anchored, yes, and that's a good question we can ask, but that's the idea of it being on a concrete slab. I don't know the mechanism myself.
yeah, okay. So obviously you can't take next, but bench might be something that,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Never know.
I don't know.
Crazy things happen.
We worried about the fish, remember?
Mhm.
Kate, you were gonna make a point.
I just was gonna ask how far, they're a little bit apart. They're not, but it's
They are, but
it's gonna go on that side.
They're gonna look at, it's right, they're on that side of the walk and they are both within the
The
wetlands.
water, yeah. it's
Water,
close
so
to
that's the key. So to put them both in one permit just saves a lot of time.
That's
Smart.
great. I'm really glad we're doing
We
it.
put everything in one permit.
Yeah.
So it's called the New Hampshire Environmental.
Environmental Services, I think, New Hampshire DES, they,
Whenever you're within certain feet of any water body, it can be a river, it can be whatever you have.
And they may even come out and inspect it, because I know I've had to do.
So I'm glad that's underway because that'll help us get some of, just like your question of how do you anchor it? It was like, yeah, I better ask Michael that.
Or maybe it's too heavy. I don't really know, but I just was
It's
thinking.
400 pounds, but, uh, but still, it's a good, no, it's a really good question. So, and the one other thing, and Sean sent this out, I think he sent it out to all of you. CIP requests from citizens are taken through September 18th. I don't, you probably want to speak again. They've been generous with us each of the last years. We've built up this fund that allows us to do these maintenance things. We have $75,000 in that fund, which will allow us to help with installation and maintenance. I don't know, and Kate, maybe you would have advice on this, whether we should put in a request as both a thank you and an ask to continue, or whether there's a different way to do that.
And you can either put in a request that way, or you can put in a request through Sean from the staff side for the CIP. It doesn't have to be a citizen request, is it?
Citizen or committees. It's open to,
committee.
it's open to citizens and committees.
Committees.
So perhaps
So I
we
think the
should put it
committee
in.
should put in a
Yeah,
request.
I think there's an expectation that you're building up.
I
Yes.
think that's
Because every
good.
year I put it in, it's 25 a year.
Yeah,
This isn't the only committee that has to have funds. The cemetery committee does the same for maintenance as well. So, we understand that.
we'll now be spending some, especially if we're doing My Mother the Wind
Right.
and some of these other
Which you're
things.
not.
Okay, good.
Oh, table.
The removal of the black and white murals on the side of the old Cup of Joe, was that triggered by something with Park? From a maintenance perspective?
That's a private building,
They
and I
moved-
think they moved across the street, so
That,
Yeah,
and
so
it
I
was,
think
they were all tattered.
the
so-
landlord took care
Got
of
it.
that.
We want to do a formal acceptance of NEBI, so I think we should open it up to have people just talk about who went, their impressions and what they saw, and
Do we have were you able
Oh,
to
you
get
have
the
some
photos up
photos.
there that we can look at?
Can I ask a question about, I looked at the photos, the supports that are the supports that are attached to it, are those gonna appear in the actual,
No.
all right, they're good.
No.
It's made out of a soft clay, which kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
And
oh, it
that-
never hardens.
It never hardens. Yeah, so they'll destroy that after they go in and do the 3D scanning. And he showed us how they do the 3D scanning with
Yeah.
a laptop and a scanner.
Fascinating.
So if it's soft clay, how is it gonna be durable enough with those?
Because that's not the.
That's the mold.
It's gonna be
Oh,
bronze.
bronze, gotcha.
It's gonna be
Okay.
bronze when it's
Yep,
done.
yep, yep.
It's-
Okay.
That's just the process.
Well, I thought it was
I
otherwise
don't know
stunning.
why they do it soft, maybe so they could just work on it, but.
When the sculpture's only, it's not full size,
Right.
Yeah.
The ones, once they 3D scan it, then they blow it up larger.
Oh.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah,
wanna say the
10.
amount of detail on that was unbelievable,
Yeah.
and he wanted to make sure that it was all authentic, and I thought that it was just amazing. Just the whole way that even the eagle
Yeah.
connects with her hair was spectacular.
He said
It's
he
hard to
was-
see in these pictures, but it really was quite something.
I sent in a whole bunch of pictures, but he said that the eagle feathers, he worked with a bird expert, was it ornithologist?
Ornithologist.
Oh, ornithologist, yeah, that word, and that it spent like, I mean, untold number of hours just on the feathers.
It's beautiful.
And I love the knife sheath that she is wearing around her neck. I guess that Abenaki women would all carry a knife and they used it for eating.
That's what he said, that was his.
And then, for doing their weaving and their different responsibilities, so they would have all carried a knife. And then there's a Thunderbird on the front of that because the oldest artifact that they found from the Abenakis had a Thunderbird on it.
How
What
did
did
they
you think
decide?
about the dress?
Yeah, I was really I have to say that as I was not subtle about expressing, I was really skeptical at when I saw the original proposal, but this is really, I was really blown away, actually. I thought that this is, I mean, the dress, my concern about the dress was not a concern in this. I mean, it's a powerful figure, and I think that the expression, I mean, all of the things that, about the hair and the eagle and the authentic things really are true, but it is such an image of thoughtful powerfulness. It just is, I mean, her face is
Yeah,
so
the wings are incredible.
profound and she's not an object.
How did he decide what she would look like in terms of her facial features?
Well, they told
Abenaki
him, he
people.
described that he was initially using a person, but I guess the people who were advising him wanted more of a composite.
Yeah, there's
So he had-
Abenaki consultants in the area.
I guess there were two
they're
people he
For
was.
Yeah.
Julio's.
Right, and they're really well known in the area. They do a lot of presentations and he consulted with them.
So like,
Pretty-
see the decorations.
So
on
she's
her
a
dress.
member of the Abenaki tribe?
Her and her husband, yes.
No, I mean,
Oh,
that
yes.
Representative.
Representative, yeah.
So for example, her dress there, in addition to the knife, well, her necklace is made out of wampum.
Mhm.
And the dress itself is decorated with seashells.
Hmm.
So everything came from consulting with the Abenaki representatives.
I don't know if any of you asked this of him, but given that it's soft clay, I mean, how does he keep himself from tinkering constantly with it? I mean, how do you know when it's done?
Right, that's a really good question.
Did you talk? about
Especially since it's soft clay.
And we
Right.
didn't ask him. I think the thing that got to us was that it gets destroyed at the end.
Yeah.
And that was just heartbreaking.
So I'll take it. I mean,
And he said there would be like a steel rod in answer to your question, Heather, when it's cast in bronze, there'll be a
Yeah.
rod.
support.
Yeah.
That's visible?
Not
No,
visible.
no.
Inside.
It's cast around it, I think.
Yeah. It's quite a piece.
So,
How tall is it?
It'll be the figure will be 10 feet tall, and then it will have the base. So, it'll probably be like 11 feet tall or maybe even taller. And so I love that you'll be able to see it.
Right, so that's what I'm thinking, even just driving
Yeah,
by, it'll be
Yeah.
you
noticeable.
talked about the patina. What about? Oh,
We did
yeah.
talk
Yeah,
about
he
patina.
talked a lot about that and talked to Corin about it too. And he has some ideas. What did he say he wanted?
The natural copper will naturally patina to green, which like the Statue of Liberty is green.
Yeah.
Right, but this will be bronze. So shouldn't
Yes.
He said it would age.
it's still,
I was thinking of like a lighter caramel is how he described it.
Okay.
that would look more like the clay, which is beautiful.
Yeah, lighter caramel. Like in contrast, the African burial ground is a darker patina.
Right.
That's right.
What will the base look like that it's sitting on? Will it be a piece of granite?
Granite. That's
Yes.
the idea. The turtle is on granite.
Okay.
I think the challenge will be for us too, is to when we make the signage for it and the plaque, to try to incorporate all the Abenaki thoughts.
Yes.
And make sure that we use all those, all of that so we can reference it, because he did such an amazing job and I think people don't know that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think that'll be really
And of
important.
course, remember, we have a QR code to be able to link it to more info too.
And I just want to say that visually it reads from all angles.
Oh,
It
that's
really,
important.
we're looking at it from one angle, but other angles, and it just has, it's really very tightly structured.
So I think we should just record a motion that we've accepted as of whatever date it was, like July. The clay, how did he refer to it as a maquette
Oh,
model?
no, he didn't say
He
that.
didn't use the word, he really didn't
Concept.
refer to it. But I would say,
I don't think you called it anything, do you?
A sculpture.
yeah, I don't think
Calling
we
it
called it
anything.
anything.
So does
I would
somebody,
say model is
Model?
probably.
do you want to craft a
uh,
motion that?
Okay, vote to approve Anthony Alamani's model for Nevi.
Second.
All in favor?
Beth and Jen.
All in favor?
Yes.
So what I'll do, Sean, is put that in a memo to you that we can send. Whatever.
Robin, you said something about, it tracking attention by the size. Caught of the Mortal Sea has that amazing light element. I can't remember if we talked about any sort of light element for Nevi.
That was a
We-
question I had.
We informally talked about that when we did the original site walk, but that's something we should talk about with DPW. Should be on our
And Endeavor
website.
has a
Right now.
I mean, Sharon's incorporated that light, that blue light into his design.
Yeah.
And then, but Endeavor looks beautiful at night.
It does.
And
But it's silvery, so it's.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we should have a discussion about that.
Introduce them.
I will. And I'm tempted to say solar and then they'll go crazy and I'll say, well, it doesn't have to be solar.
I love your
That would
thinking.
be the easiest, but.
Right. But apparently it's kind of a nightmare. you know,
The maintenance
we-
of it.
Yeah, Corin told us that before. Remember when we were looking at those other examples that because of our weather and climate and everything, it's just a constant. And if you notice at the African Burying Ground, those figures used to be lighted at night and they're
Right.
not anymore.
Right,
And they've just had so much difficulty with that.
yeah.
Okay, our next piece, Nancy, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, so maybe 2 weeks ago, Counselor Cook and I met Sean Clancy, another staff member from the Maddie from Community Development. And Dave, the gentleman who was here with Peter Rice last summer, at Von Mall. We sort of, and Ernie was there. Ernie was there too, sorry. And Tom and Brad and Tom's grandson, there was a whole bunch of us. And we sort of updated Dave on the process and how here we are a year later and we still don't really have the ability for this group to begin fundraising because there's no place for this sculpture yet that has been accepted, and can he tell us where the best spots would be? So he kind of gave us not his personally, but the vision for where some what he was referring to as temporary art pieces and permanent art pieces would likely be the best places for them to be. And so his input and all the stakeholders from the LGBTQ Open Door Project all agreed that the end of the Von Mall that is closer to the Arch and Congress Street is the best place for this because the other end is too squished with the La Coretta outdoor dining. And one thing that Brad was insistent on is if an artist decides on like some sort of physical, like a real literal representation door, he feels that we should not be forcing anybody to walk through it if they don't want to. And if you put it at the end of a very narrow place, that takes away people's
That's interesting.
free will, and also if people want to interact with it a lot, they're going to be in the way. So we tried to find a place where there was room for both. The people could engage with it, take photographs with it, have good sight views, and also avoid it if they want to, because they have that right as well with any public art. And so from the Von Mall, really up until the end of that building where the escape room is, I don't know
Yeah.
what we're calling that building, but that's basic,
that building.
yeah, that's basically the area, keeping in mind.
Somewhere in that. area.
Yes, yes, keeping in mind that there will probably be another restaurant moving in where the restaurants can't seem to stay in business, but they have outdoor dining there. And other, other things on the other side, you never know what kind of businesses will come. Maybe another cafe will want outdoor dining up close to the building. So probably more like the center area. But it was a lot of space. If you stand there, it was a lot of space.
So on that building is the doorway into the businesses above the escape room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you get to the place where you go to the parking garage.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of traffic and not likely going to be anything encumbering there.
Yeah.
You're not going to find tables and chairs in front of a building door. So that's probably a good area as well. So I don't know what we'd be calling that area. I mean, I have a photo of it we could attach. I don't know if you are feeling confident about explaining what I
Maybe
just.
give some dimensions to
Yeah.
it too. I mean, there may even be some pictures or dimensions tonight that we could build from.
Great. And so if the council if the language can say that we don't know exactly where because a call for artists has to take place and their interpretation of this committee's wishes may come back in 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, large, small, like we just don't know. And so until we see what the physical thing is going to be, we don't know the exact location, but that's the general area.
Will the council be taking any action in the near future on the Von Mall that we could hook this onto, Kate?
We have a work session, August 3rd.
August 3rd.
On Mall, well, it's not a work session, it's a discussion at the council.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if we give a resolution that describes what you're just saying, that and gives a little history to how this came about, that Park endorses the concept that would allow people to begin fundraising, and that we'd like a location
Nancy,
reserved or whatever.
it would be helpful to see, I mean, I'm trying to picture. So do you happen to have it on your computer?
I might.
Well, Nancy's looking, question about the door, if I may. So this is
A conceptual.
sponsored by the LGBTQ community, but also tying into Portsmouth as a home of the community of open doors, like.
Right.
Why would someone not want to walk through it? I mean, is it gonna say on it words that would be?
No, but I think
Politically-
it's a point to make, though, that not everybody wants to engage with public art, say.
Yeah, that's right. So it's not that the LGBTQ.
Oh, it is.
No, it is, yeah.
Could be.
It could be. I mean, you have the Westboro Westboro church people who are
Right.
their purpose in life is to rain on people's parades. So you don't want to assume that everybody wants to engage.
We don't want them to sue the city because they've been
Right.
made to do something.
And also in a positive, it's you're making the decision to go through the door. Like if you want to look at it positively.
Right.
Yes. You also don't know if
Von
somebody
Mall, there's
said
a,
things
a
about
very-
around
This is the
close
one
favorites and they
right,
feel like
okay.
Or basically
In
this
this middle
middle
door.
area.
Yeah.
you don't never want to force somebody to interact with anything.
I would say that originally, you remember it was gonna be a crosswalk?
Yeah.
This is so much like, I just feel like it's more in line. with
Anybody else need to
Portsmouth and
physically see it?
I do too, Robin.
Thank
It's
you.
not just a derivative
much.
thing.
We see those crosswalks,
This
it's
is-
pretty,
oh,
you know,
okay, music hall.
standard.
And the challenge around the
It's
crosswalks
big.
is always maintenance.
Right.
We would be spending lots and lots of maintenance funds all the time having to repaint.
Right. This just as much.
They would always be,
Yeah.
it would always be scratched, they would always be, I mean,
Yeah.
look, the poor roads right now.
But that was the original concept, so
True.
they raised, what, $10,000 or something for that?
So that's consensus that we would recommend that the council we would recommend this to your discussion. I think that's great so that we can get it on the council.
Do we need to make a vote for that?
Yeah, let's do that. So Nancy, do you want to just frame that?
A motion to send I have memo resolution to the council to approve of this location.
Second.
On the
Second
Farm
by
Hall.
Beth. All in favor?
I, do we need to say in the motion that it's an open door? Need to
I think
describe it?
in some background, we can provide some background that goes with that, just so we can draw from what they wrote to us previously.
So you have all the information you need to draft that?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Is there any sort of timeline? Because Tom had kind of insinuated there were people that were ready to step forward and donate funds.
Once the council, once there is a formal approval or accept approval from the council, this group, we met on Zoom a few weeks, last week? What is time?
Yeah,
Last week. And we walked through a timeline and they know that it's basically go time to pull together a subcommittee, finding the fiscal sponsor that's in process. And then wherever that fiscal sponsor lands, whatever nonprofit, forming a subcommittee of members of their stakeholder group plus more. And that's their job, is to create a timeline,
Okay,
do figure out their budget,
right,
and do the call for art and all of that.
okay.
And then we are there to advise.
That's good.
This is, let me remind everyone, this is like accepting the Sija Chen piece. It's a gift to the city from someone else. So
Okay,
so it's not quite the same process, but the council has to approve the gift, which is what we did
Yeah.
with that project as well.
okay.
Be sure to tell Tom about the August 3rd in case they want to be present at the discussion, so.
Okay.
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 Great. So, Hanover Garage RFP, we got some photos with dimensions from, Mike Casad. So we have everything we need for the RFP. Can you pull up the timeline PowerPoint I did? But I wanted to go over, because you remember, now we have a lot of process ahead of us. So this is a draft timeline that we're gonna put in the RFP, but the parts of it that relate to us, I wanted to make sure we discuss and see if you think it's realistic. Now, when we did this before, the city didn't have the online procurement process. Now it has the online procurement process, so this is gonna make all this a lot easier. So we'll be able to see the pieces online, do our review. The procurement office will really sort of take it from there. So if you look at this is the draft and, open for people to say, oh, this is, let's adjust this. The first slide is the external, and then the second's gonna be how we interact with it. So we're giving ourselves plenty of wiggle room here, saying that let's estimate a release date at the middle of August. Well, partly, you don't want to release something right at the height of the summer and then ask people to have to do it within a few weeks. But that gives us time to add to our list of artists, which I'll talk about in a minute. Mike Casad and any of us and the artists are invited to an on-site walkthrough in the garage. We thought this was really important. It's optional. It's on September 14th. We've scheduled that in. And, at least Ernie and I will be there. We'll want to document Q&A that comes up for people who can't be there so that we can post things in answer to questions.
I will be out of the country then. Sorry to miss that.
I wonder if we can record the whole thing.
We might at least be able to photograph some things that we could try.
Yeah.
We could try. Then the city has the procurement. If you go on and you look at our procurement online software, you'll see that questions just get posted there and we'll, as we did before, we will answer them. With a proposal submittal deadline of October 9th. So that gives people, a good, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks or so. The August 14th also gives us some time to, work with Monty on a press release, which is Ernie is working on, and just to get some local info out, even though the mailing list is really what, when it goes directly to people is really what I think causes their interest. But we have about 90 entries on that list that we use for public art, and a number of those are associations, like public art associations, where they can put it in their newsletters, send it to members. But if there are any specific mural artists, especially that you have come across that we might not have, please email them to me so I can expand that list.
Has anybody seen the new mural over at that Kittery Wine Bar? I don't know who that is. It's really lovely. So I'll try and get their name.
That's the kind of thing I think we want to do, because this could really be a good local artist approach. And, something we haven't talked about, but it's also within our discretion that we could do more than one artist too, if people are producing for different parts of it. So then the month that we notify the awardee first Monday in November. If you go to the next slide, this is the one that really, this is what it means for us. So I want you to think through this based on what our experience was before. They'll come in on the 9th, which is a Friday. That Monday is a holiday, City Hall holiday, the 12th, Columbus Day. So the next day, a few of us could do that quick review for completeness that we did before. Remember, some of what we did before was just go through them and say, did they include a budget? Did they include this? Because we weeded some out that didn't have all the parts that weren't worth reviewing. Or I guess maybe we even asked an artist if they were missing something. Then we'll talk in a minute who else we want to add to this. We would have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on our own time to review the proposals that came in and make our own notes and our own scoring. Here's the one extra date in there for meeting. That's October 19th, a Monday. So we would come together, Zoom plus, to do our ratings and surface what we think are the finalists. And remember, we don't have to pick finalists, but and we don't have a specific number of finalists. We might have 2 that rise to the top or 5. It's really, we'll see. That would mean that then we could schedule Zoom interviews with the finalists. That gives us like 5 or 6 days to do that. Those were extremely helpful before. I think that was what really made the difference for us before. And what we did before is, at least if a few of us were available, not everybody was available, but we took good notes, and I think we even recorded those so people could see them if they wanted to. And then we would use our October 28th park meeting, a good chunk of it, in executive session to make our final decision. So that would be one. It's tight. It's tight.
So all right, so the materials are all gonna be online.
Yes.
So
Well,
the October.
You're saying yes, I have not seen that. Is that how you're gonna request?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and
But good point. We have
The
to.
procurement, it's still,
Still working on it.
kinks, but I assume that has that.
but we are gonna be able to meet, to Zoom into a meeting where that's discussed. Where the finalists are discussed.
Yes, I mean, ideally, some of us would
For us.
be in person, but
Yeah.
we could also
Yeah, I
make
mean,
it.
I just am in the process of trying to get a fall trip together, and that has seemed to be a blank period.
Yes, I would want to make it so that we could zoom in. Failing that, last time, I think at least one person sent their notes and their scoring in ahead of time, then we took it, and somebody represented it during our discussion. And you look like you.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
So I know we decided, or we talked about, because we did the flash vote, that was sort of the public approach, because most of the commentary was about murals.
But it's open. We've still let it open.
Okay,
But we did talk, we included an appendix that has the flash vote info in it, so people could see what people.
okay, because I know with Sparkling Serenity, it was very nice to be able to report back to individuals who had commentary to say, hey, we had sessions that the public could come and give
Yeah.
comments on, so just wanted to raise that.
Yeah.
Is that-
So
do
we've
we have time
included
for it?
it as an attachment, the flash vote summary, so people could see the interest in murals and, the kinds of things people are interested in.
But that's a good point. It's
Will that
not
suffice?
exactly like.
It's not as clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not as clear.
I have a quick question. If it's online, but somebody has requested to send the material in, does that disqualify them? They want to send the materials instead of uploading it onto a.
We'll have to find out from the procurement office how they
Okay.
handle that. I mean, ideally, to me, people would create a PDF.
Right,
package.
exactly.
That's what you have to do in the
Right.
real world for everybody.
But every once in a while we get somebody
No,
who doesn't want to do that.
Some artists are not.
Yeah.
technically-
So to be clear about the procurement process, before when it wasn't online, everybody had to submit in paper. And that was a challenge for people who are used to submitting things online. Almost all cities have an online submission process. So
Okay.
us moving to this procurement process was us moving to a space where more people can submit
Okay.
design. And so,
That's good to know.
yeah.
It's a good question, Rob. Should ask that of the procurement office because,
And maybe we
We
should
might
have some
recommend-
language that says online submissions only, or something.
So, yeah, I mean,
Or-
if there's no rule that says you all can't decide that that's the deal,
yeah.
Right,
that should be the deal,
right.
in my opinion. Not policy.
Because we're not asking for a lot. We're hoping these are, and actually we're trying not to make it difficult. We don't want people to have to do a finished product. We changed the language. I think Beth suggested some language just so that people could feel a sketch could be okay if they wanted to, a mock-up of some type.
And I think with the two-dimensional work, it's kind of more straightforward.
You're
I mean,
right.
Anyway, I mean, with the site on Pierce Island, it was just like, it was a complicated
Yeah.
sort of issue. And
Yeah.
here we're talking about,
And the on-site, I think, is going to help a lot. That also, I think Ernie was the one who said that kind of communicates. Local artists really sort of do have an edge on this, so they can come and see it. So, that internal schedule is ours. So if that slides or if it doesn't quite work out as we get closer to it, we can change that. But right now, it's the external one with October 9th due date. November 2nd, we're aiming for an announcement. With 9 minutes to go, this is a big topic to bring up, but we'll just tease it up. Sean and I received from Vito a concept for 2027. I will describe it to you briefly, and Sean, you can see if you think it's close to what you think it is. But you know Vito.
That's right.
He is suggesting an exhibit for 2027 that would be based, he's calling it the metaphysics of food. It would be based on food in art and have AI components. So the AI presentations would be used to communicate about food in art. And it would have 3 themes. Food is a still life, which, as you know, goes way back, right? Historical. Food is an allegory of the body. If you think of those Renaissance artists that used clusters of food to make up pictures of the body and the face. And then the third would be surrealism, and this is where AI would really come into play. So as an exhibit, it would be, here's how I understand it. Think of a museum exhibit. There would be 3 short films that would give you like 5 minutes, give you sort of, again, using AI, an intro to each of those. There'd be about 20 artworks, and there'd be panels that would, be a little explanatory panel that you would go through. Along with this, there'd be like an opening reception talk, and at one point, at least a panel of artists. And that would be the core. Then anything you could build around it. If you wanted to add some workshops, if you wanted to get some restaurants involved to do like themed dinners, whatever.
Had some Italian cooking classes.
Right, exactly.
But the big shift is, it's not a festival.
It's not a festival.
It's an exhibit. And then all this add-on stuff is if others, not Vito and company, not city, wanna build on it.
And would the exhibit be available for 6 weeks, a year,
Well,
like,
that's-
so
that's
that's,
up to-
okay, so it's
that's-
still fluid.
It's very plastic.
Okay.
that way.
And there's not a location that anybody has
Well,
in mind
this
yet.
is sort of the next step. We shared it with Ben Van Camp because
Uh-huh.
we engaged Ben before with Vito, and Ben really thinks this is something that it should be that should be privately sponsored, and it should be that if there's a private, obviously think of Jimmy's
Mhm.
as
Right, oh, that's a perfect spot.
perfect spot for it. That's and that's why we wanted to have a little discussion with you all, because there may be a couple of different venues or partners we'd want to shop this around to. I think Ben feels it's not the kind of thing, he feels that we'd have pushback if, as a public entity, we had selected, an outsider artist to do this for us. Now, there is a cost to it, but it's not very much. The way that Vito makes his money back from it is it would be a ticketed thing. And this is especially why then it wouldn't be appropriate as a city. Now, of course, as he says in his proposal, we could make it free to certain people, to school kids, whatever, but they would make their money back by the ticket cost. So that's the outline of the concept.
So we wouldn't be fundraising for it or taking money from our.
That would be the idea. And now, what he says sets up for, this is how I understand it, a pool of money, now a private sponsor could do this too, that they could draw from for development purposes, but that would be replenished back with the ticket money. In other words, they would take the ticket money from it and replenish that back. But to get artists going on things or to commit some things, there'd be like a $30,000, I don't know what you call it.
Kitty to get
It's like
started.
a
or
kitty,
something.
yeah,
Kitty.
kitty. This is like first cut, and I think it's more for y'all to think about it and for us to have a real discussion about it. And then decide how we want to proceed. Do we want to pitch this to a couple of partners? Are there a couple people on our committee who want to sort of take this on and sort of make it a project?
Let's take. I just wanted to work some shit. So we met Vito through the sculpture that he did. Okay. And then he just likes Portsmouth, or he does this all over the place.
Loves
So he said, oh, I love doing the sculpture. I want to work with you again. That's how this.
He
is-
originally wanted to do a festival, like a
Yeah.
multi-day festival. That was his original.
AI art.
Yeah.
The Serenity sculpture?
It's called, what's it called, GIA?
After
Yeah,
coming
Gaia.
here and meeting the
Gaia.
community.
Oh.
It's kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
just did he just did one in Bari, where he's from,
In Italy.
in Italy.
Right.
And he's like, this would be great. I want to come back. I love you guys.
And the idea is, he believes really strongly that generative AI art has the potential to not be the kind of stupid AI stuff that we're seeing a lot with AI, but has the potential to be used in a different way to inspire artists. That's his motivation. And he thinks we're a test bed
Okay.
for this, partly because, a lot of people know Portsmouth. It's the kind of town where people might be interested in this, that sort of thing.
I can envision a collaboration between Vito Chamber around Restaurant Week.
And marketing.
And
Mhm.
yeah, and
That's right.
yeah, I mean, if it was dovetailed around Restaurant
Something
Week,
that we
time of year,
Yeah.
the Italian American Society of Portsmouth started working on that too, because they've been really active in the community.
It's a good idea.
I can see several stakeholders that might be very, very
Even the
interested.
music hall too, they could have an Italian film festival. I know that UNH does it, but this would be a different time of year.
Well, our sister city.
Yeah.
So, keep thinking. And
So did he send you something written up?
he did, it's a little hard I didn't send it to everybody first call, it's very long and I've had to read it a number of times to kind of figure it out, and Ben's
Nice
reaction.
to read.
Ernie has also looked at it. I'm happy to send it to
I'd
everybody.
love to read
So
it.
you can see what you think this is.
Visual person.
Is it public art if there's a ticket price or?
Well, I think that maybe is Ben's point, but that's why he thinks it's not appropriate for Park to be the one sponsoring it.
I think he's spot on when he had a sense that it wouldn't be received well. You have an outside artist coming in talking about AI. It doesn't matter what he has to say. After that, people are getting their torches and pitchforks ready, It's just, yeah.
Yeah.
If it's proposed as something from the city, I
And
think.
we don't want to compromise Park, right?
That's
We don't
right.
want to,
Right.
That's
say
right.
we play favorites.
Exactly. And
We
that's
talked about that with
that's
Terrence
Ben's
a little
point.
bit.
Yeah.
I can follow this right now.
Oh, yeah, Sean will forward it to all of you. So,
Okay.
so let's have a good
Yeah.
discussion of this at our next meeting after you've had a chance to think about it. It's compelling. I don't know about your worlds, but, generative AI is just I work in education. It's like everything now in terms of how people are starting to think about what the guardrails are. How is it appropriate? When do you use it in a cognitively development way? All of this.
Especially with what happened today. I don't know if
Yeah.
people, that was pretty
Yeah.
major.
I feel like 3S Art Space is also
Oh,
pushing the
that-
envelope on these things, that
That's a
type of
great
art.
idea.
So involving 3S and New Hampshire Art Association, because they have a biennial exhibit at Jimmy's as well. So there's already some partnerships going on that we could maybe leverage.
Yeah.
And Vito's been at this for a while. This is not a new thing.
Right.
He's he's a futurist. He's out there on LinkedIn. He addresses large groups about the impact of AI across all industries.
That's right.
And he happens to be an artist.
Right.
So
And if you've looked at the journal, I know we sent a link a while ago to the AI journal that he's been doing. Those articles are very substantive, and there are a number of like Boston artists who are really leading in some of this work, including with children. So
What happened today?
Oh, it was just a big AI breach and it was pretty major. You can just Google it and read it.
Oh.
It was a pretty big deal.
AI is people worried about.
Yes. It
AI.
was on the loose and
I
it
know.
infiltrated a company.
Okay.
It's all open.
Yeah.
On its own.
Gonna keep that up.
It got loose and it hacked its own company.
Yeah, it, right,
Machines.
yeah, it was
It's
pretty,
very funny.
it's pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
So,
Another sandbox.
we better do a motion to adjourn for those of us who are.
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Jen, everybody?
Hi.
Great.
Chris, it's at the library, right?
It's at the library.
That's gonna be fun.
And Robin, I know.
What's
that?
The what?
Maybe next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. He's been there for 20 years. He's